Good morning, baseball fans, and welcome to episode 8 of Baseball as Intended. I'm Yeyo. I'm here with my good Cuban American friend, Jon. Good morning. Today's Monday, March 20th. So, the morning after USA faced Cuba, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later,
Yep.
and the morning before the other semifinal game, which is Japan and Mexico, which we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on. But good morning, Jon. Happy week.
Happy week. Is that something we say? Happy week?
I, I guess. I mean, we are recording on Monday morning because, especially
Yes.
you, I wanted to watch it too, but especially you had a double
Yes.
interest in that game last night. So we wanted to just focus on the game, and we'll record later on.
Yeah. It's a little weird because it is Monday morning. I think this is probably the earliest in the day we've ever recorded. Um, but it's kind of nice. I got my coffee here, talk a little bit of baseball, preview what's going on, go over what's happened. I'm excited.
I mean, I don't think we're going to talk a little bit of baseball. I think we're going to talk a lot of baseball, but everything WBC related. Obviously, this is another World Baseball Classic episode, and there's been a lot going on. Obviously, last week we were going, it was right before the Puerto Rico Dominican game to close out Pool D's games. We knew it was going to be a 2-1 record, both teams with the 2-1 record, win or go home situation. That's exactly what it was. We both share our predictions. One of us was right, one of us was wrong. A big thing happened that game as well. But let's start. I think, before we get into the, I guess, nitty gritty of those games and everything,
Yeah.
everyone's talking about everything that has been going on, right? If you didn't know, Edwin Diaz is gonna be maybe out for the season because he was celebrating a big Puerto Rico win over the Dominican. You've probably been living under the rock. So we got a few injuries, and here comes the WBC haters, obviously saying, this is an exhibition game. This doesn't matter. It's not worth it. And kind of like, what does this mean for the World Baseball Classic? So, Jon, you as a Mets fan, how do you feel about, especially Edwin Diaz, tearing a little bit of a ligament in his right knee from celebrating a
Well,
huge
not
win?
not not tearing a little bit of a ligament, full tear of the patellar tendon.
Yeah.
um I think I'm actually like a good person to ask because I love the WBC. I love the Mets, right? So this kind of hurts me watching what I loved. I I'm a little bit so I don't consider the people that are mad about this too much WBC haters. Like you said, some of them definitely are. But we personally, and I think maybe some of this is a little bit of culture, love the playing for your country, on the world stage, World Cup format tournament. It's just something that resonates with some people. I think it just depends on who you are, right? I think some people are making it clear that they view these kind of like you said, like more exhibition games, a more ramped up spring training, and then other people are watching it and saying, this is the best tournament in the world. To me, I understand both sides. I really do. I can see why you would be upset that someone from your team or someone that you follow got hurt during these games. I can't actually blame you for that because you understand that you wanted Puerto Rico to win. Edwin Diaz is out there. That's awesome. If there's someone who doesn't care about this, then to them it was a meaningless tournament that he got hurt in. I don't agree with that, but I don't think that it's a wild take, right? This has only been going on for a couple years now. Technically it's been a while, but if you look at how many tournaments, it's only been a couple. So I hesitate to call them, like the haters, even though they sound that way. And some of the tweets are terrible. But I think it's just going to be that this is one of the risks, and I think as the tournament grows, it'll become more accepted, hopefully everyone's playing in it. And it's like, well, if you get hurt in there, that stinks, but it's not going to make the news the way it is now because everyone is defending it. And I think that's the big thing that I've noticed. When you see everyone getting interviewed after, they're like, hey, this happens, but we want to be here. Guys from PR, Dominican Republic, Team USA, they kind of tried to put them on the hot seat and say, what do you think? And they were like, well, this is the best thing we've ever done, sucks for Edwin. So I think, it's a weird thing to look at, but it's just going to be like anything else. Injuries happen and the tournament's growing. And I think when you say the question as the WBC's future, I think it's pretty bright. I think this has been a really, really good tournament.
And I think, it's one of those things, injuries happen, and they do happen. It sounds kind of, oh, no, they don't. He wouldn't have torn his ligament because he wouldn't have been jumping. If it wasn't like that, it could have happened any other way. And one of your Mets players, Brandon Nemo, came out and say like, I don't really care about the WBC. I'm more focused on spring training and the Mets winning a World Series, which is great. And I understand it. But then the very next day, he got hurt sliding, playing kind of like half-ass, running to second base and half sliding. He was diving in center field. So injuries do happen. And the World Baseball Classic, we look at the numbers, and they keep breaking all kinds of records. And it is kind of a new tournament, like you mentioned. We've only had, like 5 or 6 of them. So that's why it kind of feels new. But you also got to think that this is basically replacing Olympics, the Baseball Olympics. Baseball was removed from the Olympics, and that's when the World Baseball Classic started. So even though it doesn't have a large history, baseball does have a large international competitive history in the Olympics and all that. So it is a big thing. It's the only time that professional players can go out and play for their country. And whatever little Timmy says on Twitter doesn't really matter. I rather listen to the players, right? And, I rather listen. Uncle Steve, what is he doing? He was in Japan watching baseball, WBC games. He knew exactly what happened to Edwin Diaz. He sent them like trainers and dietitians and all this stuff. He probably understands that injuries happen, and he understands that those are risks that these players are taking, and not only taking, but willing to take. And you, as a supportive owner and a good leader, you're supporting them in that decision as well by letting them play. Obviously, I understand somebody like Carlos Correa not being allowed to play. He was about to have a child, the whole ankle situation,
right.
There's obviously other players that have a higher risk. If you were hurt at the end of the year, then you cannot go play. I completely understand that. But to blame the WBC, I think it's just ridiculous.
No, it's ridiculous. And like you said, I think there's going to be this balance of, and I think we kind of understand it now, like you said, Carlos Correa not playing, right? We get it. It stinks, but he went through this whole off season with the ankle and all that. And they said, we can't deal with this, Carlos. And he was like, okay, you guys were the only team to sign me. So there's going to be situations like that. But other than that, I think it's just going to gain more and more traction. Like you said, I think the owners understand. I mean, I'm pretty sure Steve Cohen probably punched the wall before he issued a statement saying everything's okay, and we understand. But that's how it goes. I think it's been a great tournament so far, to be honest with you. I think 100%. All the feedback has been incredible. When you talk about the little moments that we've had, the PR Dominican game was full of, just crowd and high leverage moments. USA, Venezuela, we're going to get into all of it, but it's just each one has gotten better and better, and I think this tournament just keeps growing.
And it is growing. I think the more it grows, we've seen the growth of Israel baseball keep growing, and all these other countries going to grow. You know what? That's going to be more talent for MLB baseball that is going to be available. You're going to have more Shohei Ohtanis or more kids trying to be like Shohei Ohtani.
Right.
And he may look like one in a generation talent, which he is, but maybe somebody else will be, even if it's 80% of Ohtani, he's going to be an amazing superstar that will be making $500 million. So, it's growing. I think the fact also that the semis or every single round was played in Miami, I think it adds so much to it. Because I don't ever remember being this so I remember going to the Puerto Rico games. Obviously, Puerto Rico was at home, basically playing Dominican. There's a big rivalry for years. But in Miami, it included everyone too, right? And you had the pool of death in Miami, which is Venezuela, the Dominican, Puerto Rico. And now you have U.S. coming over to Miami after qualifying it from Phoenix. And they're playing Venezuela, and that's when people realize, like, oh my God, this is nothing like what it was in Arizona. This was different, you know. And
Yeah, this was
I
different.
literally had somebody send me a text that was in the game. He's like, dude, it feels like there's 500,000 people here, and
Yeah.
and I'm sure the Puerto Rico Dominican game was even worse, like louder or crazier,
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
it had to be. It had to be. Yeah, I mean, probably a little different, but yeah,
Yes,
same idea.
a lot more tension and nerves, you know. But no, it's been an amazing tournament. I think the WBC is here to stay. You still have the players saying how this was the biggest moment of my life. Randy Arozarena Omega played at the wall to basically save the game for Team Mexico, and he said that's bigger
Yep.
than any home run I've had in the World Series or anything else. So the players are supporting it. I think that's only gonna keep growing. I think Arenado, I think it was, or Goldie last night said, like, I don't know why people wouldn't want to come here. Like, so that's, same thing that happened in 2017 with Mike Trout. It kind of, boom,
Yep.
oh my God, I'm going to play next one. I'm sure there's somebody at home watching it. It's like, oh, I'm coming after this one next time around. So, and it's in 3 years.
Yep.
So, it should be here quick. I hope.
I love it. I love it.
But because it's been so good, let's talk a little bit about. Let's recap the pool play, and I think honestly we cover everything pool related except the Puerto Rico Dominican game, and we talked a little bit
Yeah.
about it. Obviously, we know that Puerto Rico ended up winning. What's the final score? I think it was 5-2.
Five. No, it was 5-4, wasn't
It
it?
feels like so long ago. It wasn't five
Oh, yeah.
four. It was Edwin on
No.
a 3-run lead.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
I
that's
wasn't
right.
even I
I'm
wasn't
sorry.
even sweating on the ninth inning. I will
Oh, yeah,
say
yeah.
that.
The Puerto Rico win. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Puerto Rico beat Dominican Republic 5-2. That's where Edwin Diaz got hurt. Lindor had a little league home run. Julio was lost out
Yeah.
there in center field, and then he came and made a diving play on a Javi Baez, gapper. What are your thoughts on that? So I will say, hand up, I was wrong. As a Puerto Rican,
Yes.
I thought that the Dominican Republic was going to win. As an unbiased baseball fan, on paper, they had the best team. And now everyone's saying how this is probably one of the biggest collapses in baseball history because this is a all-time great team that didn't even advance of pool play. Trying to take credit of Puerto Rico, which they couldn't even celebrate
Haters.
fully.
Haters.
But I was wrong. I had the Dominican. You had Puerto Rico winning. So
I did.
What was your thoughts on that game?
So I thought it was a great game. And we talked about this a little bit while it was going on and all that. To me, the Dominican looked a little bit flat, for a lot of the time. And when you watch this tournament, and I know baseball is a little hard to do this, but you have to play as a team. And if you watch teams like the U.S. that have advanced and how Puerto Rico was playing and all that, they were just trying to get on base, trying to move the runners over, trying to keep the innings going. And I know obviously the DR was trying to do that as well, but you also saw them as a lineup where everyone can hit a bomb. And it kind of at times felt like that's what they were trying to do, because that's obviously going to work for them a lot of the times. But when they got behind, it felt like they were a little flat. They started feeling a little bit of the pressure. And Puerto Rico at that time did have Edwin in the pen, did have some arms that with the pressure mounting late innings was able to kind of shut them down a little bit. And I thought they handled it really, really well. I mean, that was a big win for Puerto Rico, to be honest. Congratulations. Even though you didn't have faith in them, I know you were going absolutely wild. But I will say, if we're going to start treating this tournament as big as we are, and people are going to say that it's the best thing in the world and all that, huge failure by the Dominican Republic.
Huge.
To be honest with you, huge failure if you look at it. 2-2 with that lineup. And I mean, they had, decent pitching as well. Didn't advance out of the group stage, which was a tough group stage, but you were supposed to be the best team. There's first and second place that advanced there, and you didn't make either one. So big failure. And it'll be a storyline to see in the next WBC. They probably come back loaded, and then they have to advance. They have to. But that was a great game. That was the kind of the primetime game of the pool play, and it was awesome.
Everybody was tuning into that game. Everybody knew what it meant. A winner go home game adds to it, to the rivalry and everything as well. I do think I understand what you're saying. It feels like sometimes they were playing for the names on the back and not the names on the front. And that's something that it feels like Puerto Rico doesn't. That was a great one. You like that one? It feels like Puerto Rico doesn't do that because it feels like Puerto Rico always outperforms their expectations. And Puerto Rico was not expected to come out of the pool play, even though, they had a very good team comparisons to others, but they weren't supposed to be better than Dominican Republic, especially, or Venezuela.
Right.
They had the perfect game plan. They opened, they had an opener going, so they literally had no pitchers, but they executed the game plan perfectly. And Dominican kept putting runners on, and they kept getting away with it. And at the end, obviously, Edwin coming out running to the trumpets was just like you knew they had no chance at that point. But it was a great game, well played game, a lot of big moments. Once Christian Vasquez opened up the scoreboard with a home run, it was like
you started to believe right then.
Yeah,
that's all it took. Yeah.
It's one of those games. It's a game 7, right? It's one of those games that you have to take that first. You have to hit that first punch, and that's exactly what they did with that home run. And the team itself, it felt like it gave them a lift of like, oh my God, we're here, we're taking it, and that's when everything started kind of like happening.
Well, and that's how you put the pressure on the DR. We said that if you can have a little bit of a lead around the 5th, 6th inning, everybody's human. You can't count on these bats to just wake up every time they start feeling it. And that was a pressure-packed game. I mean, you can't say that they didn't feel some of the pressure. Not that they couldn't handle it, but as the game got later and Edwin was looming out there in the bullpen, it was pretty sick.
It was so scary though, because we're up 4 to whatever it was, 4-1. It's like,
right.
but look at it. Now they got Machado, Devers, and it's like, oh my God, they're so good. But they weren't that night. Puerto Rico was better that night, and they were able to advance to the quarterfinals. So let's talk a little bit about the quarterfinals, because we had a couple obviously 4 matchups. We had Australia against Cuba. We had USA Venezuela. Venezuela obviously won the group. A little bit of a surprise that USA didn't win the group. They ended up losing to Mexico, who ended up winning the group. So Mexico, Puerto Rico, and then Italy, Japan. So we'll start with kind of like the first games, right? Japan 9-3. We know that their group and their pool wasn't the strongest, but their team is probably the strongest. So, I mean, they keep winning, they keep dominating. Just another Japan performance. I have nothing else to say. They're just so good.
Yeah, they just steamroll. Like we said, right? They like you just said, they didn't play the stiffest competition, but they never have a bad day. So if they play someone who's not that good, they're gonna absolutely blow them out every time. They don't let them hang around. And Italy put a couple runs on the board. It actually was close till the middle innings. But it felt like that game was never in doubt.
Yeah, too strong of a team. A little bit of a closer game was Cuba against Australia. Again, not the 2 strongest teams. Cuba, after losing the first couple games, they were able to somehow survive that pool. And they have a great matchup against Australia because it feels like it's not like Australia is one of the toughest teams either. So it's crazy because you see these 4 teams, right? You have Japan, Italy, Cuba, Australia at the top, and then at the bottom you got USA, Venezuela, Mexico, Puerto Rico. It's like, we gotta balance this out a little bit better.
It's too much.
Come on. Like, at the end of the day, it feels like the best teams and the teams that are playing the best are the ones advancing, right? But come on, like it feels like one-sided.
And the thing is, like, on the side of Cuba, Australia, Netherlands, that side of the bracket, I will say that was a very weak side, but those teams felt even.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Australia and Cuba, it was a 4-3 game, and that game could have gone either way. That's okay. Japan cannot, and I like Japan. Japan had way too easy of a road, to advance. You might as well have said, hey, just take a couple days off. Yeah, we're just giving you a couple rounds of buys here. So yeah, they definitely need to work on that because it is nice to see some teams have a chance, advancing. The Australias, the Italys, the Cubas, which I hate to put at that lower tier, but they are. But it can't be that unbalanced.
I mean, you have USA Venezuela when it could have been obviously
That
that's
could be
how
a
it was,
final.
right? But literally, it could be a final, and it could have been
Yeah.
USA, Australia, and Cuba, Venezuela. More of a balance, and have the
Right.
big teams really match up, not in the quarterfinals, but what about semis and finals, which we still have some great matchups, right?
We did. They were just on the bottom
Yeah,
half
yeah,
of the
yeah.
bracket.
Of course. Now, one of the good matchups of the quarterfinals, Mexico, Puerto Rico. And it was tough because for Puerto Rico it was the following day, right? Like, or they had a day
Yep.
off, and then the game. It felt like it was a very even as far as the odds. I think Mexico
Hmm.
was still the favorite, but you knew it was going to be a battle. And then Puerto Rico comes out with all the energy, scoring 4 runs in the first. And after that, the bats went to sleep. And Mexico decided to stay up a little bit late. And they ended up winning 5-4. That was an electric game, anyways. That was so much fun. It sucked because I was like, we came out of the pool, but I mean, Puerto Rico, I didn't think they're gonna have enough talent to win it all, but it would have been nice to see them win one more game.
Well, once you got past the DR, you don't want to get eliminated, right? Because you're like, we cleared potentially the biggest hurdle. Let's keep going. But Mexico is really balanced, man. They're really, really balanced.
Yeah.
And, they have enough pitching to be dangerous. They have, I mean, a Rosarena, like you said, adds something big to that Mexico team. Like, they've been on the come up for a while now. And give Mexico credit. Their baseball federation, organization, whatever you want to call it, has really been pushing baseball in the country, has been getting the big leaguers hyped for it, getting the fans out. Like, they are marketing their team in a way that is growing it and making it a lot better, because I think now we look at them as kind of one of the premier teams of the tournament. Whether they're at the elite level baseball wise is kind of remains to be seen. But as far as, hey, there's a big game tonight between USA and Mexico, or Mexico, Puerto Rico, you're like, yeah, that's a prime time game. That's going to be high level baseball. So I don't think nothing in that game between Puerto Rico and Mexico would have surprised me. Nothing at all.
No, I think
Did I pick?
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say, like, I think the only surprise on that one was not the final score. It was that Puerto Rico came out with a 4-run first, and then you're thinking, like,
And then
you have them on the ropes, and then they just kind of took their foot off the. Or Julio Urias decided to become Julio Urias as well, and just
Yeah, I don't know that they took their foot off the gas. The car just stopped moving any faster.
They ran out of fuel. They ran out of fuel.
Yeah,
But
yeah, but that was a great game.
Mexico's a very good team. They showed it by beating USA, and they ended up winning 5-4 there. And this is exactly what we're talking about with the brackets. Now you can see it if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening, then you can check it out on YouTube as well. But you see the bracket wherever you're watching. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. But you can see the bracket. It feels very bottom heavy when you look at it. And talking about bottom heavy was the USA Venezuela game. And for me, the game of the tournament so far, considering everything that was at stake, what happened, the back and forth, the fans, everything. And this is exactly why we love the WBC. USA ended up winning 9-7. It was a game-winning grand slam by Trey Turner, who just cannot stop hitting. We'll talk a little bit about that in that semifinals game, but oh my God, what a game.
Trey Turner's a bad man. That game, yeah. If you had to show someone to sell them on the WBC and you could pick one game to watch, that's the game you're showing them, because in Miami, you've got a real good mix there of fans. A lot of Venezuelan fans, a lot of USA fans, and then I imagine a lot of people who didn't know what the finals were going to be, or the semifinals, quarterfinals, and just bought tickets and they just wanted to see good baseball. That game was a back and forth affair, and Venezuela had the USA on the ropes, and they knew they had them on the ropes, and they were starting to feel it. And man, when Trey Turner came up with the bases loaded, you never know that something's going to happen,
but you
knew that was a big spot, and that he was feeling really, really good. And that was electric. Because they were on the ropes. I remember, I don't know who I was talking to, but we were saying, the USA has this lineup but they don't have necessarily the best pitching. They have to kind of win a slugfest there, and they had to put up a bunch of runs, and Trey Turner did it in a big way. That was absolutely awesome.
I mean, and not only that, but the fact that Venezuela had them on the ropes after a slow start because they were down 3-0, right? USA
Yes.
scored three in the first, and you think like, oh my God, wait, what is going on? But Venezuela had been playing so like great baseball the entire tournament. You
Yes.
knew that game wasn't over. And they battled back. They had them on the ropes, but they got in trouble. When you walk the bases loaded like that, same thing happened to Puerto Rico on the Mexico game. You walk the bases loaded with nobody else. It's tough to get out of it. This is, you're in the quarterfinals. It's major league talent, right? It's world talent. It's tough to get out of. And it was probably the worst 0-2 pitch in the history of 0-2 pitches. And Trey Turner did not miss it. It
He
just,
didn't
wow.
miss it. And
It was so
they
cool to
knew
watch,
they
though.
had to get the guys on base. That's when you saw it, and we started to say it. Like, the first round was kind of a little bit weird, the pool play with the United States. They were just kind of there, very talented team doing what they do. They started to get a little bit locked in, and you could see it in that game. They were literally they were locked into where they were like, okay, we need to get guys on base,
Yeah.
and then we need to drive them in. And they were taking the walks, they were moving guys over. But that was an awesome moment, to be
Yep.
honest with you. And Venezuela, I mean, hats off to them. We said it. They're stacked front to bottom. We looked at that roster on paper at the beginning and said they can hang with anyone.
Yep.
And they did, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah, they lost, and that game gets remembered for what Trey Turner did, but they were right there going toe to toe with the U.S.
Yeah, and I picked them to advance. I had the DR and Venezuela come out of the pool play. I know you had DR and Puerto Rico advancing, but Venezuela was just stacked. From Acuna started playing better as well. He started finding it.
Yeah.
He hit some rockets, missiles, got a little bit unlucky there, but that's baseball as well. And it was a great game, which gave us USA and Cuba in Miami. Cuba playing in Miami for the first time. Now we talk about the bracket being very bottom heavy if you're looking at it the way we're looking at it right now. And it showed. USA just destroyed Cuba 14-2. Cuba, it felt like, Cuba scored one in the first. They had the bases loaded, nobody out. And Wainwright just decided he thought it was like 2010 again or something. And
Yeah.
he didn't allow anything else. I mean, it's not like Cuba was putting off great swings. They got a little bit lucky or whatnot. But after that, when you saw that Cuba didn't score more than one run, you're like, well, good luck now. And
Oh,
USA
once he,
just started hitting.
yeah, once he wiggled out of that, it was like, okay, that's it. And baseball's weird like that. If they manage to put three across right there, the game can probably go a little differently. I think the United States was still scoring a ton of runs. I mean, they're locked in, and we said it. Cuba doesn't necessarily have the pitching. I mean, they started a lefty that was throwing about, 91 to a lineup that can just feast off that. And hey, no blame on him. Most lefties are getting feasted off on that lineup regardless, but it wasn't a good matchup for them. I think it showed kind of the different levels, to the different parts of the bracket. It was an interesting game. It was Cuba in Miami for the first time against the United States. The crowd was electric. If you watch that game through 9 innings, it was an absolute blowout, and there was stuff going on in the crowd, people running on the field. So it was very interesting in that sense. But the United States has kind of shown why we said at the beginning, when we did our preview, they probably have the best lineup, and I think they're showing that. So they're on to the finals,
So,
defending champs, and
yeah.
it's going to be hard to pick against them.
Back-to-back finals appearances for the Team USA. They don't have an opponent yet because tonight we're gonna get a Mexico-Japan game. And USA and Japan were two of the best three teams on paper, betting odds and everything since day one. And this is what I was talking about. Usually the best teams end up meeting in the finals, or the teams that are playing the best. USA
Yep.
is probably one of the best teams, and they're playing the best, so they're going in hot. They got a day off today, and they'll play it tomorrow. The winner of Mexico and Japan, they'll have to play back-to-back games for a finals. But Japan's pitching. Mexico, it's playing with house money, right? They got nothing to lose. They weren't supposed to be here, right? So who do you got? Give us a little bit of a prediction on this one.
Oh man, I think Japan's definitely the better team. I think we would agree with that. And they got Sasaki going, the 21-year-old absolute, phenom. who we'll probably see in the big leagues one day. But I got to go with Mexico, to be completely honest with you. I think I said Mexico was kind of my surprise pick at the beginning of the year, long shot. And I don't think that necessarily means that I thought they would win it all. But this game is also, Japan's been having home field advantage throughout this whole tournament. They're going to be in Miami now. There will be, I mean, it's not necessarily Little Mexico like it is Little Havana, but there's going to be a lot of Mexican fans down there. I think it's going to be a little bit different. I look back at that Mexico USA game where Mexico really, walked all over them, and we said it was all just a fluke on the USA's part. I'm starting to think Mexico has a little bit of something going. I think they managed to squeak by this game and set up a rematch in the finals. Would I bet on it? Absolutely not. But I do think Mexico manages to sneak by Japan, which would also be a disappointment for Japan. They had a weak, road up to this point. They demolished everyone. To get bounced by the first real good team they play with would be a little, disappointing, but we'll see how it goes. I got Mexico.
Yeah, I can't go Mexico. I think Japan is still too strong. You mentioned Mexico beating on the U.S., but USA's pitching is not Japan's pitching. You mentioned the phenom for Japan. They got too many arms as well. The offense is no joke either. Like they're averaging 8-9 runs a game anyways. And I kind of want to see, USA is the best offense. Japan is the best pitching. And we talk about good pitching beat good offense. We may have to see if that's how it's gonna play out in the World Baseball Classic. Japan has always, every World Baseball Classic they've been here, right? They have the experience. They, obviously not every player have been here, but as a country, as a team, they've been in semifinals, and because they're that good. It's just so tough for me to pick against them at this point. I think Mexico has had a very good run, and it's a one-game deal, right? It's a Game 7 situation.
Right, that's what makes it tough.
Anything can happen if Mexico comes out swinging, and then Japan has had a little bit of a longer layoff as well. Maybe they're kind of rusty after the flying into Miami. There's a lot of factors that can benefit Mexico. It's still tough for me to pick against Japan at this stage. In the finals might be different, but I got Japan winning. I'll probably go with a 8-3, 8-4. Score. I don't think it's really that close, honestly.
Interesting. No, I mean, I could see it going that way as well. I think that, like you said, what lets me kind of pick Mexico is that it is a tournament. It is one game. I think they're flying high a little bit. I mean, we saw it happen in the Cuba USA game. You get a couple bloop hits in the first inning. I think Mexico, if they get a situation where, a couple errors, which I don't expect, but they'll take advantage of some opportunities if they get them. And I think if they get the momentum, they probably, have a chance to pull it off. But I like what you said about if we get Japan, USA in the finals, everyone says pitching, it's kind of like the defense wins championship, right? Pitching wins. Have you seen that USA lineup? Yeah, I'm not so sure in this case. It would be fascinating to watch because I actually do believe that. I'm a believer of that. But then you see that lineup and you say, good luck. So that would be fascinating.
And you can see a Shohei Mike Trout battle, and before they go their separate ways, we expect they're not going to play in the Angels for the rest of their careers. It's just not happening.
No.
But seeing it in the finals of a World Baseball Classic, Shohei already came out and said he's going to be available out of the pen. I don't think he's going to be the starter. We got to expect them to bring him on at some point. But yeah, a Japan-US Trout-Ohtani matchup, like the storylines, and they have been the two best teams since the tournament started. Obviously USA had that hiccup against Mexico, but Mexico had a hiccup against Canada or against Colombia. So, it happens, right? They're still, in my book, the top two teams. So that's going to be a very interesting one. It's going to be tomorrow night is going to be the finals. Obviously tonight is going to be the semifinals, and we'll come back and talk a little bit about that as well, and kind of see. But that's our finals preview. Any last word, Walkers? You got anything to walk us off?
Well, I like, to be honest with you, we're in a comfortable spot as fans here in the sense that we've got a good finals matchup, I think, no matter what. right? USA Japan is how it's supposed to be. USA versus Mexico would be absolutely fine. I'm excited the next 2 days. I'll be honest with you, I haven't paid as much attention to March Madness because this has taken up all my time. I don't know about you. I mean, I know we're here to talk baseball, but we also always watch a little bit of March Madness during this time of year. This has taken all my attention, and I absolutely love it. And then I love that as soon as this ends, after we're able to recap this, we go back to spring training and there's not much longer till opening day, which those games are going to feel a little bit meaningless until it really gets going. I got to be honest with you. I'm going to need the juice, but I'm pretty excited about that. And right now focusing on the next 2 days, and then I'll be missing the WBC and excited for opening day. What about you?
It's funny you said that. I think I'm the same way. I haven't watched a whole lot of March Madness, but my brain has no problems with it. Like I've been so hype about the WBC. Like we've been waiting for this for 6 years, and it hasn't disappointed. Even though my team is out, but it's still like I'm still watching all games. I don't watch all games every game on spring training like I do this. So give me this over spring training, obviously every game. I literally tweeted out one negative thing about the World Baseball Classic. I tweeted out a couple of days ago, is that this is happening before the season. And we're going from the best atmosphere ever, from the highest of high to not the lowest of low. Because
don't say lowest of low.
I'm not going to say lowest of low. Spring training is the lowest of low of professional baseball. Opening day is electric as well and all that. Opening week, it feels like, but in a month, this is gonna feel so far away, and it's gonna be so different. So enjoy the World Baseball Classic while you can. Trust me, because it's electric, it's fun, it's good for the sport, it's good for my heart as well. But yeah, no, I just love the World Baseball Classic, and baseball in general. So, but that will do it. That will do it for us. Episode 8. Good luck to Japan. I'm glad we didn't agree on tonight's game. So we're probably gonna be trash talking. I guess
Mexico.
I guess now Mexico. I guess now I really have to root for Japan just to be right in this game, because you were right on the Dominican PR game. But enjoy the games, enjoy the finals as well. We'll come back and recap the finals as well after that's done, and we'll check you out on the next one.
See you guys soon.